this will be good because I think we might have some disagreement on this one. Did you want to start or should I start? Or Zach?
Go ahead.
All right. So if you watch the Thunderfoot videos, I think those give a pretty good example of those explain the situation pretty well in terms of swine flu. It's or what's called swine flu. It's a somewhat new type of flu that is spreading rapidly, and it doesn't really kill more people than regular seasonal flu, but it's spreading rapidly through the population. And then there's a potential for mutation in the future, and who knows what might happen. And the reason to spread.
Yeah, I've seen a video where he describes kind of a potential worst case scenario. Right.
Right. And that's a real potential because every once in a while we do have huge flu pandemics, and millions and millions of people die, and that was before they had lots of airplanes, and so bad things could happen. Who knows?
So, having not watched the Thunderfoot videos, I mean, how does he come down on the whole notion of the efficacy of the vaccines that we do have? Because I mean, I've talked to I've like checked into various people who seem to think that the vaccine itself is fairly safe. So I'm willing to buy that, in the grand scheme of things, this is not a seriously dangerous vaccine, but I've got some real serious questions about whether or not it's actually doing anything, because there's very little information, I think, saying that it actually helps the groups that are purportedly most at risk.
Yeah, well, I know I can say one thing about that, sort of for personal experience. I know somebody here in town who just had an organ transplant, and they can't take the swine flu vaccine right now because the only type of vaccine right now they have is a live vaccine, I think, I believe, and so they can't take it because just taking the vaccine would be dangerous to them, and they're one of the people who is at risk from swine flu, which is spreading throughout. So we've been really careful to be hygienic and stuff. But there's an example of somebody whose immune system might be suppressed who can't take a vaccine and who is at risk for swine flu. Another thing I've heard, and I don't know if this is conspiracy theorizing or what, is I heard something about there being different kinds of vaccines, and that the type of vaccine generally given to the population has some low levels of mercury in it, and that sort of vaccine wasn't given to certain politicians in Germany. Have you guys heard anything about that? And I don't know if that means anything or if that's just Alex Jones crap or what.
I haven't heard too much about the effects of it, but I did a little research before starting here, and there's a conservative that they use with the vaccines, preservative that contains mercury. Okay, and it's a small amount of this preservative, basically to keep the thing from going bad, from rotting. Okay. And a lot of vaccines are products which have to be frozen or have to be chilled, have to be used quickly, or they will go bad, right? And I know this from the translation work that I do, which deals with pharmaceuticals and quality control and stuff like that. So there are a lot of types of vaccines that if you don't refrigerate it, it'll go bad, right? And so I guess they use this preservative to I don't know, make it easier to transport, make it easier to store, that sort of thing. Which, if it contains mercury, seems to me to be something which is of questionable merit. I would say it's probably better to refrigerate things than it is to put mercury in them. But the level of mercury is probably about the same as, for example, a can of tuna fish.
Well, here's actually what my big issue is with this. And I was watching a reporter on Democracy Now! The other day who was really into investigating this. She just put out a piece. I can't remember now whether it was in Harper's or Atlantic, one of those two. But what she pointed out was that there have never been any kind of tests to evaluate the efficacy of the flu vaccine. In other words, no kind of double blind with like one group getting the vaccine and another group getting placebos. And that the fact that there's been substantial resistance to even doing these. Which I find amazing that we have absolutely really no idea as to, we're just kind of operating under the assumption with anecdotal evidence that we're doing something with this enormous investment of public money. And we don't really have any information saying that it's not just an enormous waste. So, I mean, I understand the whole idea of...
Well, again, I mean, this whole swine flu thing could be pork. You know, that could be basically like I don't know. It's one of those things where there's so much controversy around the issue, right? The swine flu thing, like if you've seen the Thunderfoot video, okay, they talk about this worst case scenario, which could be really a huge deal, killing a lot of people, okay? I'm not talking about something that's like, you know, world altering, like it's gonna kill off half the population or something, but it could kill millions of people, which would be a terrible thing that we have to do what we have to do to avoid, right? But basically it's like if you watch the news, it's like they're trying to scare you with it. You know, rather than just trying to deal with it, which is what we should do in a rational way. I mean, you know, you see the news, they've got these, when they start talking about the swine flu, they've got these graphics, you know, which are like this, you know, green computer animated, like sludge all over the screen. Like, I mean, it's like they're trying to use these scare tactics, obviously, more than anything probably to capture your attention and get ratings. But then there are people who are saying, well, you know, obviously this is just a scare thing, it's not a big deal. And then there are other people who are like, look, they're trying to kill us all. You know? I mean, there's no rationality. There's no like, here's the problem, let's deal with it.
I have something I have something to say a little bit about that. Like, I haven't seen it much in the news lately. Right when swine flu hit, there was the huge, big scare, and they say, oh, this is going to be possibly crazy and it could possibly kill us all, blah, 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 of course. But then after that, I didn't really see anything. Like, even while it was spreading and spreading and spreading. And I think the problem just isn't one of the news using scare tactics to pursue their ratings, but I think it's also one of the attention deficit disorder of the news cycle itself. The flu pandemic event is something that's spread out over, you know, multiple months. The news can't handle anything that lasts more than 24 hours. So if the swine flu hasn't killed anybody in a week's period of time, the news is like, whatever, we'll just, you know, talk about celebrities or some shit.
Right, there has to be some sort of deviation, some substantial deviation from expectations to make it newsworthy again. You know, it's like, okay, well, some people are dying, about as many people as we expected, and there's nothing newsworthy about that. You know, you can't go on the news and say, well, about as many people as we expect to die are dying. There you go. That's.
I got something else on swine flu, guys. I don't know if you've heard this story. And maybe tell me if I don't know if we need to discuss what we're discussing more or not, but, did you guys read where, these swine flu vaccines that, well, may or may not work, and they probably do work, but they haven't been tested, enough. Although I'm wondering, has there really been time to test it? But anyway, these vaccines, they're experiencing a shortage of them, as far as inoculating everybody who is in a vulnerable part of the population. And so they're having to, ration distribution. And I don't know if you guys saw the story where what they're doing is they're not just giving dosages to hospitals, but in New York specifically, they're also giving vaccines to large businesses, very large businesses like
Goldman Sachs,
Citigroup.
Now, see, if I had any questions about whether it was effective or not, and whether it was a serious risk or not, they're answered by the fact that they're giving them to the CEOs first.
I see where you're going.